What's up everyone, Cryo here. So originally the plans for this video was to go over the decline in quality when it comes to the Switch era Pokemon titles, but at this point everything that needed to be said has already been talked about. Besides, I don't want my channel to focus too much on the negativity, but in a way offer stuff that would be positive aspects or some cool ideas that they could dabble in. With that being said, what I want to discuss about is what I consider a missed opportunity, with Pokemon Let's Go being the focal point. Ignoring some of the main gripes I had with it, the one direction that I wish they would have taken, that thankfully they're now taking with the Legends game, is to have the story take place in a different period. Instead of how Legends have it where it takes place around the start of the region's development, Let's Go should have been a couple decades after Red or Gold's journey so we can experience a new progression of the region. No hate for what Legends is doing, but I would rather experience newly developed things than seeing what it will become since, we already know. With Let's Go, but more specifically the Kanto region, a new story and other developments is sorely needed with how bare-boned Kanto is compared to other regions. Side note, when putting this together, I did come across the fan-made project New Generation, so I might try that out at some point. In typical fashion, I'm going to discuss the ideas and changes I have for the region. Not going to be a complete synopsis where I had the villain and full details of legendaries, but enough to have a solid foundation for it. Going from city to city, let's begin with this discussion, starting with Pallet Town. Just like with the first protagonist Red, our journey will begin here in this small, peaceful town. Professor Oak's lab has been changed to commemorate the people of that town for their hard work and achievements. There, you'll meet the retired professor that will tell you of the stories about Kanto, such as Team Rocket, past champions, and major events such as the volcanic eruption down in Cinnabar Island. After indulging him with a pleasant conversation, he will act as your guide and teach you about the world of Pokemon, how to catch them, and help you through Route 1 so that you arrive at the new lab, located at Viridian City. Home to the former champion, Blue has picked up the role as head professor to the Kanto region. Here, you will be given a Pokédex and will have a choice on what starter Pokemon to pick, to which Professor Oak will test you in battle with his newly caught Pokemon back at Route 1. After the battle, Blue will tell you more about the gym, informing you that he himself is the gym leader of the Viridian City. He'll brush you off as a challenger until you collect 7 other gym badges, right before sending you off on your journey with his trademark response. After leaving the lab, Oak will give you a description of the Pokemon Center, the Mart, and finish off by telling you to go through Viridian Forest to make it to the next city. When traversing through the forest, you will have a mandatory quest that involves helping a hesitant trainer find their way out of the place. This person will be your rival going forward that will occasionally battle or help you along your journey. Essentially the role that Trace played in Let's Go. Once you two part ways, you can finally step foot into Pewter City. So here there's going to be quite a few changes, some of which dealing with the legendaries, but first I'm going to go over the gym. The rock type specialist Brock has moved on from Pewter City and is now under a new leader who specializes in bug. To me it just feels right since the Viridian Forest is right next to the city. Upon receiving the gym badge, you will get a call from Blue about your progress. After the typical bragging session about how much faster he was at accomplishing things as a trainer back then, he will task you to go to the museum, which has now been renovated to have an observatory section. Side note, thank you Game Freak for still making it that way in Let's Go. Just needs a little bit more energy on the whole bragging part, but other than that,
it was perfect. Perfect.
Continue on to the museum. There have been some recent sightings that will lead you to investigating Mount Moon for more details. This is where I was trying to think of the legendary. Originally, I thought this would be a good way to discover Melmetal, but since it's a random idea video, I decided to just go with making 2 different legendaries just for the fun of it. One will be of a land prehistoric Pokemon that will be rock fighting type, and the other a space fragment from a passing comet that will become a sentient Pokemon with the type Psychic and Ice. Long story short, you'll be working alongside Blue and the museum workers to unravel the mysteries of these Pokemon. Now, let's move on to the next city. Just like with the previous city, Cerulean's gym is under new management with the leader having expertise with flying type. And since I'm pretty sure some people are drawing some similarities with the Johto region, that was by accident. I did not notice when coming with the ideas that basically it's flip-flop between the Johto region and Kanto when it comes to the first 2 gens, how in Johto you have Faulkner. Is it Faulkner or Faulkner? I think Faulkner. But anyways, I promise that's where the similarities end between those two regions. Heading north, we got a group of trainers maintaining tradition with the Nugget Bridge challenge, with having the trainers, of course, receiving the nugget after defeating them. Once completed, you can head on over to Bill's house to discuss with him the findings in Mount Moon. Unfortunately, with a lack of sufficient data, Bill won't be able to give you much info about the new Pokemon. Though this next area won't be available to you till post-game, it would be neglectful on my part to not talk about the Cerulean Cave. Mewtwo will be long gone from this area, though if they were to include it, they could place them on a random island near Sevii Island. Back to the Cerulean Cave, you encounter a former champion that will take you on in battle. Could be the champion from the Johto region, which, by the way, the train to that area would be out of commission. Main purpose to this is if they were to continue the Let's Go game in this fashion, then it would probably be for the best that it will be reserved for its own game, so that the region could be further fleshed out. Sorry to the huge Johto fans out there, but as I said, it's for the best. Not to bring about any more sorrow, but now it's time to go over to Lavender Town. Before leaving Cerulean City, you were told by a concerned relative about strange aberrations going on in this town. Nobody knows why, but this little side quest will have you investigate it. Just to give a bit of insight, Mr. Fuji, the kind caretaker of abandoned Pokemon, has passed away. With the love, care, and devotion that Fuji had towards them, the spirits soon become relentless and begins to haunt the town. To quell them, you'll need to journey through the chambers in the House of Memories. After completing the quest, you'll get an award from the Poke Tower who've been closed due to the incident. Nothing else I can think of for this area other than maybe altering the landscape to have a section dedicated to housing abandoned Pokemon. Will be a fantastic way to pay respects to Mr. Fuji's final work. Going back onto the main path, the next location to go over will be Vermillion City. To stay with the main focus of it being the next generation, the city will have the gym who will be the second gym leader in the series to specialize in dark type Pokemon, which is actually kind of crazy seeing how dark has been a thing since Gen 2. I guess Game Freak sees this as an extremely prestigious type since more often than not they're reserved for the Elite Four. Though I guess if you count those island challenge in Sun and Moon, then we have in total 3, but I digress. With this game having decades of progression, the Diglett Cave could be expanded to become a full-fledged dungeon. Maybe have it uncover some new secrets about the legendary or about Kanto's past. Speaking of underground, the underground path will be your ticket to exploring the depths of Kanto, which will let you find certain items and fossils. Moving away from the underground and straight back up to the surface, the heart of the city, the gem, the SSN will be docked for you to explore and will always remain there for you. The next cruise will be when they travel over to the Sevii Islands, which you will get a ticket from Blue when you collect all 8 gym badges. But enough of that, it's time to put Vermillion behind us and head on over to the big city of Celadon. First, I want to start off with a major change that will be great as not only a new development for the Kanto region, but also a nice little nod to an Easter egg back in the original version of Gen 1. To cut ties from Team Rocket, the new addition would be to change the game corner to a Pokemon battle simulator, similar to the one from the Ori region. If you guys aren't familiar to that region, it's the location of the spin-off Pokemon games, Coliseum and XD Gale of Darkness. Just like in those games, they could have the bingo battle system, or those simulations that focus on performing or countering certain tactics. In other rooms, you can also have Coliseum style battles which, along with the aforementioned activities, you can earn points that can be used to purchase some rare battle items. Going back to the nod I mentioned earlier, the people that run this facility will be the key figures in Game Freak that we met in the condominium. No longer are they working in a small, tight office, but now they got their own building and their battle simulator is the talk of the region. Pretty reflective of what they are now and a great addition to Kanto region, especially to fans of the Shadow games, including myself. But enough about that, moving on to the gym leader. And finally, you get to see a familiar face. And I don't mean that dirty old man outside the window. We have Erica continuing as the leader of the Celadon gym. The one thing that I was a little against with the fan-made game was having the more younger gym leader retire, since they still should have a lot to give. The last thing that I want to go over for this area is a route between the bike route and Celadon City, which now contains a track course for the trainer to practice with their bike before trekking through the bike route. And that's pretty much all there is to this grandiose city. Now moving on to the opposite side of the spectrum, we have Fuchsia City. To be quite frank, I couldn't think of anything new to add to this area as the size of the city is pretty small. It honestly does not lend itself for any room to grow. The only thing that comes to mind would be to create a small town somewhere near that long stretch of land east of Fuchsia City. Maybe have a quest that has you assisting the gym leader, whom by the way is Janine, so yeah, she's back. She'll be a seasoned veteran at this point. But anyways, once you handle the crisis in the new town, which could be an issue dealing with the new legendaries, the antagonists of the region, or both, Janine would become available for you to challenge. Another area to put the spotlight onto would be, of course, the Safari Zone. Again, there won't be any major changes, but just have it where each zone's design-wise would be a bit more diverse so that you can have Pokemon that would thrive in their respective environment. For gameplay purposes, outside the more uncommon or rare Kanto Pokemon that you normally find there, post-game, just make it where that you can just get a small handful of Pokemon from different regions appear there and have them cycle out every week or so for a new selection. Not much else to say about this area. Again, like I said, it's one of the least eventful cities, so adding a quest and a local town is the only spicy change that I could think of. Speaking of which, let's move on over to Saffron City, home to the major corporation Silph and of course the Psychic Gym, or it was back then. Now, the new gym that runs Saffron is a fighting dojo, and they pack a punch this time around. What happened to the former gym leader, you may be thinking? Well, don't worry, you'll see her in the near future. As for the rest of the people, they focus on training the minds of the future generation. Stop on by so that you can test your mental fortitude against them, and you may get a reward for it. Going over to Silph, they'll have a story element with the whole investigation of the legendary Pokemon that would lead them into creating a device that will be able to resurrect them. Just need to find the right location. Things are starting to get heated up as we make our way to Cinnabar Island. After the whole eruption decades ago, this island has now been flourishing with some new hotspots for tourists to relax in, not to mention another small, far-off island that will be the place where the mystery of the legendary Pokemon would unfold. But before wrapping up that chapter, let's focus our attention on the gym. The former leader Blaine has hung his boots up as the leader of Cinnabar and now resides on Sevii Island. In his stead is a former Cerulean gym leader Misty, with this area being more ideal for water enthusiasts and to lounge about in some hot springs. It was a no-brainer for her to take up Blaine's position. Once that's completed, and of course you have taken care of the new legendary, which by the way your rival would have captured the opposite version, you can finally go back to Viridian City and challenge Blue for the final badge. Just like with his battle back in Gold and Silver, his team would still be comprised of different Pokemon that he's collected along his journey, not specifically of a certain type. This way he'll test your abilities and see if you're capable of taking on the league. After riding high from your success, there is one road left to travel, and that's the Victory Road to the Indigo Plateau. As mentioned earlier, I wanted to have a separate Elite Four instead of it being shared between the Johto region. The types I have for the Elite Four in no particular order will be Fairy, Rock, Normal, and Psychic. If you recall throughout the video, I did talk about some of the former gym leaders either retiring or went on to other things. Does any of these types seem familiar to you? I sure hope so, because the former leader of the Pewter and Saffron City, Brock and Sabrina, has been promoted to elite status. The other two members will be new to us, but to take a page out of the new generation's book, I was thinking that it would be a funny callback to have youngster Joey all grown up and becoming an Elite Four member. For the champion, didn't have much thoughts on whether it should be someone completely new or someone that we already know, but in the end, I thought it should be Silver as the recent champion of this region. But before taking on the Elite Four, you will have a battle against your rival, with one of the Pokemon on his team being his newly caught legendary. After completing the Indigo League, you will now have access to the main area of the Sevii Islands. A quick side note, along with Mewtwo, the legendary bird trios would also be located on their own respective islands that you can visit after receiving the tickets from Blue. Wanted to get that out there before going any further, but now back to the main section. Just to give a little something after the main story, these sets of islands will have challenges that the trainer will be able to participate in. With a bit of inspiration from the Alolan region and the Orange Islands from the anime, these challenges would have the trainer focusing on solving puzzles, riddles, and completing courses before they take on the leader of each island. With a more laid-back vibe, some of the previous leader and Elite Four members would be running their own respective facilities. They of course are Lorelei, Lieutenant Surge, Blaine, and Agatha. Upon completion, you will take on the head facilitator of this league, which will be none other than the man himself, Professor Oak. Hey, he gotta do something in his own downtime after retiring as a professor. Not to mention that it would finally give us that full Pokemon battle against Oak that was scrapped back in the OG Red and Blue. Completing this league would of course award you a trophy, and you will be crowned as the champion of the Sevii Islands. That pretty much wraps up the major ideas I had for Return to Kanto. This has been a topic I've been wanting to make a video on for a long time. Though yes, Let's Go main goal was to bring in the Go audience with certain design choices that was mildly controversial in the fan base, while still giving the fans a bit of a nostalgia trip. But I still feel like this was a missed opportunity for us to experience some new progressions in Kanto. It would have made it feel like that it grew along the way we did. If they ever give us another journey through Kanto to celebrate a major milestone for the series, I would hope that they'll go this route for the game. That's it folks. Remember to leave a comment down below on your thoughts on this video and the idea of if Game Freak ever were to create a new journey through Kanto that has new avenues for us to explore. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more content from my channel. Have a good day folks. I'll catch y'all later.